This is Me, I Am Mental, the podcast. A quick disclaimer. The content you find here is neither intended to be therapy or diagnosis. It is provided for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only.
Eat to heal. Indeed, this is the riveting story of Kamau Wanyoike. Kamau was unexpectedly diagnosed with diabetes while apparently enjoying a healthy and active lifestyle at a relatively young age. Conventional medical treatment, while providing some relief, came with its own complications and adverse side effects, pitching Kamau into more worry and anxiety about his health. Feeling frustrated, Kamau decided to take matters into his own hands. In part 1 of this conversation, Kamau walks us through his journey from pre-diagnosis to the time he decided to review his dependence on medication and the discovery of the healing properties of food. He goes on to shed light on ways in which you can use nutrition and diet to lead a fulfilling and healthy life. Now, welcome to part 2 of the conversation. Clarify for me. So the fats we are talking about, like bacon, the reason is that I have been having this running battles with my son about he does have a very savory tongue. And he likes his bacons and browns and part of my problem
Your son is correct.
Is the processing. Is that these are very highly processed.
Yes.
But you're saying like things like bacon.
Bacon
would they're preferable to say bread.
Oh yes, by far.
So you'd rather have your meal that has your egg, your bacon, maybe something,
If you must do carbs,
yes.
and I always look for naturally occurring carbs.
Okay.
You have ndoma, arrowroot,
Yes.
you have sweet potato, you have cassava, excellent. The way God made them, they're natural.
Irish potatoes don't feature?
And you can
Irish
fry them in
potatoes-
bacon fat.
Irish potatoes are different because they are high on the glycemic index once you cook them. But there are ways that I've discovered how to eat them. There's a concept called, not a concept, it's a science now, what we call reduced carbs. Reduced carbs are when you cook your carbs and then you let them cool down considerably. Don't eat them immediately. Potato has a glycemic index of about 90. Glucose being 100 at the glycemic index that we check, whatever. But potato, once you cook it, it goes to 90. If you let it cool and eat it when it's lowered, whatever, it can go up to 60 or even 50. So it's much more palatable, it is much more or rather helpful for somebody who's having sugar issues.
Okay.
The other thing I do is even like when I have to eat bread and I eat sourdough bread, for reasons that I'll explain, I will buy sourdough bread and put it in the freezer. I will eat it tomorrow. I won't eat it today. Similarly, I do the same with rice. You put rice in the fridge, and I love cold rice in the morning. As part of when I make my salad lunch, I put 2 spoonfuls of rice because I love the taste of it in my salad. And that time is what you call reduced carbs. Rice has a glycemic index of about 70, 80. Once you chill it overnight, it goes to about 40, thereabouts, or 50, 40, 50, that range, meaning then it's reduced. Then I check the quantities that I eat. Coming back to bacon, because of the way it's made, because it's cured, and most of the time they don't use the harmful chemicals. One of the things they pick up is something called sodium nitrite. I'll probably get beaten up for this when I say sodium nitrite has been used. It's a safe thing to use.
Oh, that's good news.
Because they've always blamed it because of the sodium, not knowing how you should take your sodium. Sodium nitrite is actually responsible for creating it's nitrates in your body. When they're elevated, they're not good. But we need the sodium for heart health. Contrary to what we've been told. We are told, get off salt. Let me tell you for free. If you get off salt, you will die very soon.
Yeah.
You will die very soon. Sodium, what is it? It's an electrolyte. Very, very super essential. Electrolytes, sodium, magnesium, potassium, calcium, you need them. Your body needs them. That's why they're called essential, right? And so sodium has been given the bad rap because of the way it interacts with potassium in regards to your kidney health. You know, the kidney is one that filters all these harmful chemicals and puts them out. If there's an elevation of one over the other, it tends now to have reaction on how it works. And normally you can eventually get damage from the kidney. The kidney is messed up by getting too much of a bad stuff that are toxins, but getting them all at once, including sugar. I told you, insulin resistance is when you have too much insulin and too much glucose causing in your bloodstream. Where is all the blood going for purification? The kidney. So the kidneys bears all that brunt. And since sometimes you, depending on how much water you're taking, again, not too much water, but enough quantities, because again, there's a horrible fake science of drink 8 glasses a day. I tell people, drink 8 glasses a day if you must, but put salt in them, or put lemon juice in them, or put apple cider vinegar. Then you make it much more helpful for your body, because then you're turning it to some form of electrolyte. I told you the body is electrolyte, not necessarily water. If you take too much water, your kidney, that water is just going through your kidney and flushing things out to the toilet. That's what you're doing. And what are you doing? You're depleting your body of minerals that are in your bloodstream. So you're taking, or in your flora, you're taking all that water and flushing out nutrients with it.
So there's a question I have, and this is...
Sorry, I digressed a bit.
Yeah, we were talking about bacon, and now we're talking about water.
Just a curious one about the water.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I go with the trying to do my 8 liters a day, is it
8 liters? No, it's not 8 liters.
8 glasses. 8 glasses. So 8
Please don't
liters
drink 8 liters.
Like trying to be a cow, isn't it?
Right.
Anyway, so I find, like you say, I spend all my time, yes,
going to That's exactly what happens.
Yeah. Now, sometimes when I was younger, what I used to do is I would just wait for my body to tell me when I need to take some water. And my body would tell me, and I would just...
Thank you.
These days, I also try to listen out. There were times I wasn't... I think, abusing my body a bit. But like I was telling you, like I'd work with maybe just a cup of coffee the whole day. I remember at some point I'd realize the combination of thirst and hunger, and then I'd realize, hey, you hadn't had any water at all, and you have been signaled the whole day. Or sometimes you'd have some type of meal, and your body seems to be telling you water would be a good idea just about now, and you would ignore it. Then further downstream, you'd feel very listless, and then you're wondering what's wrong with me. Then remember, you didn't take any water. So the body can signal you, but you also need to be paying attention.
You need to be paying attention.
Yes.
One of the things I can say is that it depends on, because we have all these advice, information, and to do this, 10 ways to do this. Nobody tells you that each body is unique in and of itself.
Yeah.
What works for me may not necessarily work for you. So don't prescribe the 8 glasses to everyone. There are people I know who do with very little water. That means probably their kidney functions very, very well. There are people who would need all that much water because, again, thirst is an indication of the kidney needing water, which is why obey your thirst is a good thing. And normally I tell people, drink water when the body tells you to.
And just to clarify, obey your thirst is not with regard to beer, is it?
Okay, sure. No. Somebody coined it, but it's a phrase.
I'm just
it has real world ramifications too. I mean, where I grew up, there was a little cafe that's out in the forest, and they had the lumberjack breakfast. And it was like a stack of pancakes, syrup, butter, everything like that. But it was called the lumberjack breakfast. Like, it's designed for guys who would eat that and immediately go logging. Like out in the forest, like with chainsaws, working hard. Not travelers who are up for an 8-hour drive that morning.
Yeah.
You know, you'll fall asleep at the wheel.
Oh, you will.
Yes.
Sure,
Yes.
why not?
Definitely.
Yeah, and I remember the first time I actually had a job, probably the only time in my life I had a real job with a boss, you know. I was probably 20, 21, and I was a bachelor, you know, young guy. I learned how to make biscuits and gravy in the oven and on the stovetop. I was like, biscuits and gravy, I can make that myself. So I made like 8 biscuits covered in white gravy, which is wheat and all carbs and all that. And I remember it was just so good. It was so great. And it had sausage bits in it too. And that's all I ate. That was it. And milk probably. And then I went to work, and my boss came in, and I remember very distinctly. I was sitting at the desk. It's like 8:45 in the morning, and he's talking to me, and I do this. And he goes, "Are you falling asleep?" And I'm like, "No, sir." He goes, "Are you on drugs?" And I'm like, "Okay, well, I'm not going to do downers in the morning if I am on drugs, but but no, there's a problem, and I don't know. But I figured it out eventually. Just like I'm overloading with
You're overloading your body not only with that, with a lot of kind of one type of food with very little nutrients to speak of right there of what the body readily needs. Because I told you that body burns glucose, but it can only burn so much.
Yeah.
And since carbs are not essential, carbs meaning the sugar, the starch, all those are not necessarily essential in your body. Sometimes it doesn't even know what to do with them. So it becomes sluggish, and part of the reason why people get drowsy after they eat is because the blood flows from your extremities to come to concentrate on the activity here to help with the digestion. And hence you feel drowsy. And you're right, that lumberjack breakfast is a horrible thing for anybody on the road. You probably crash your car. But the thing is, like, coming back to bacon, the issue was like sodium nitrate, which is a preservative. Actually, there are doctors now who actually vouch for it to say this is a safe thing to take. The body knows how to use that and to turn it into, to have something called nitric oxide, which is a super, super essential enzyme we need. It's a mineral we need.
So for breakfast, for a good breakfast, for maybe especially for you, then you can come back to generally speaking. What should we take? Like, say, every day, and then what should we take every so often? And then at what time and in what quantities? Just like this, a very practical way so that guys can,
So if I'll use my own example, that would help because it's something that I'm familiar with. My go-to breakfast is to see how I can increase my fat intake as much as I can. One of the fast-moving items in our house, painfully so, is butter. So we use ghee for cooking, for large cooking, like in now frying your stuff. We use butter also for cooking, but mostly we take butter a lot. And I use my butter in my uji. My uji will have, now I guess we have whatever. It'll have wimbi, sorghum. It'll have cassava flour. It'll have moringa.
Are you fermenting it or the
No,
uji?
that's not fermented.
Okay.
But when I make fermented, it's a process, but fermented foods are excellent. That's the best food for your biogut flora. And when you're eating fermented food, you say you're starting fermenting, you're starting your digestion in the mouth. But I digress.
Sure.
So I'll eat that. My uji will have all those. It will have baobab powder because I've found how that works. Sometimes if I want it sour, I'll use tamarind juice.
Okay.
Ukwaju. Yeah, natural things that I've found locally. Then it will have lots, like a whole tablespoon of butter inside. If I want it a little sweet, I'll use honey. I don't touch honey.
Okay.
Honey is horrible, and I'll tell you why. For me especially, the monk fruit sweetener.
Which one?
Monk fruit sweetener.
Monk fruit.
Yeah, it's found in Carrefour shop. It's there.
No.
The only downside, it's horrendously expensive. The only downside with these foods, they are horrendously expensive. But now breakfast will form that. Then if I'm taking the bacon and eggs, eggs will always feature in everything that I'm taking.
Okay.
And sometimes, like in the morning, I do eggs with mushrooms because I need the zinc. The mushrooms are loaded with nutrients. The best form of zinc you can get in mushrooms. Then I chop them and toast them with my egg. in the morning, again with butter. Then I'll take with ndoma or cassava or I'll take plantains, but not so many. We love plantains because with plantains, banana is a very interesting plant or fruit. When it's in green form, when it's starch, it is full of starch. Then when it gets to get ready and sweeten, it's full of glucose. Not only glucose, it's also full of fructose. But it's the only plant that is known, the only food that is known to have glucose directly. I know the benefit of taking glucose, and that's why you see most runners they'll take a banana,
yes,
because it's readily absorbed into your bloodstream. So it goes straight to the cells. That's why we opt for it. So I'll take fried plantains, which we love in our house. Again, they're also expensive if you're buying them from the supermarket. But I have a sauce, I get them from
You're frying them in butter.
You fry them in ghee or butter. Just toast them, thin slice and then toast them.
Got it. Okay.
Then have that with your eggs. In the morning, I'll do 3 eggs. I'll probably look for other eggs later if I need to. But then I know what other foods to eat to increase my amino acids intake. Then I'll take tea. We have our own chai dawa in the house. That is black tea. It has black pepper, ginger, cinnamon, cardamom, and cloves, all ground together into a powder. And then probably mine I sometimes throw in a green tea bag and take it neat. Occasionally I can take that with milk because I'm not sensitive to milk and I like my milk because I'm also getting the fat in the milk. And that would form my breakfast.
At what time?
So since I'm doing the 16-8 fast, my breakfast will be from 11, 12. Today I had it at 1:30.
How many slices of bacon?
Depends on what I'm served. But
what you're served.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
But I could eat a whole packet if I needed to. But then
I had yesterday's breakfast.
I'd get bad look.
I had 4 eggs and half a package of bacon for breakfast, I think, yesterday.
See that? So he knows what to go for. So what happens, again, I told you I'm looking for that fat content to sustain me for longer. That's a very satiating breakfast because fat is burning very, very slowly.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And your body needs fat. Your body needs fat because when we've heard of the ketogenic diet,
no.
Oh, you've never heard of it?
Of course.
Okay.
I know all the terms. Except
So
for that one
ketogenic
about the seed.
Is when you raise ketones in your body. Ketones are fat molecules. When your body assimilates fat as energy, it goes into a state we call ketosis, where it's producing more fat for energy. That is the best fat for your cells, the best fat for your human growth hormone development by your key organs, testosterone and progesterone when a mother is pregnant, and estrogen. They're all they rely on fat molecule, and it's the best fuel for your brain as opposed to glucose. So they're two whatever. So ketogenic diet is this idea of increasing your fat, lower your carbs, or lower your glucose, or your whatever. So that's what I would do at say from after 10 onwards.
Okay.
Then my eating window is 8 hours, between 10 whatever. But then I gorge myself with food, whatever. Largely I do sometimes 1 meal a day or 2 meals a day.
Okay.
And the benefits are amazing. Because now
are you still able to work out when you're doing that?
Sorry?
You're still able to work out?
Oh, yeah, you'll be
runs and
amazed
stuff?
the kind of energy. What happens, the body now, then you actually don't need that much energy. Because even if you work out, you don't want to go into, you don't become a gym freak. Because again, I told you, gym freaks, all they do, if it's women, when they overdo their whatever, they elevate their levels of testosterone unnecessarily, and then also your cortisol levels remain high because the body is still in that fight or flight, whatever. So it just leaves you, once you have elevated cortisol, you have elevated glucose.
Okay.
So it becomes also damaging.
So
which is why, when you're exercising and you do those whatever, it's always then you have the intermittent rest in between. So there are people here, they go to you 5 days a week to the gym. It's not even practical. And then those are the kind of worst of exercise, the ones that you do strenuously, running marathons, running on the treadmill that is so bad for your knees. And you don't know when you're running now, you pay later. Later is when you realize, why am I don't have grease in my knees joint. That thing is damaging. The best exercises you can do is what we call high intensity interval training, HIIT. Most gyms have discovered that, where you go and you do rope swings, you move on to another thing, you lift, whatever. Again, my instructor told me never use weights and never use these machines. Use your body weight as your resistance. Do your push-ups, do your sit-ups, do your pull-ups, using your own bodily strength to do that. That's a kind of best of exercise. So HIIT is what is now recommended for you to have that optimal health of that triad of health, triangle I was talking about. So again, not exacting. So go on.
Sorry, back to the food.
Okay.
How much does it cost you?
It is expensive, unfortunately, because of the realities of our economy. So one of the things that I've learned is to find hacks. I've just been told of a guy who is making bacon, his own bacon.
Yeah,
He's somewhere in Kembu.
hook me up.
Yeah, I'll hook you up. He rears his own pigs and slaughters them. When you order, like you can order a whole piglet to be done for you. They'll just slaughter it, quarter the meats and whatever, and then you take it home with you. You go there with your cooler box. But I'm told because bacon is normally a process of making. If you look at the Italians, they eat a lot of pork, they eat a lot of bacon. And the people in the Far East, although in the Far East they tend to over-fry it and whatever. But what I like about the Italians is even the way they cure their meats. It's done with lots of salt. And this doctor I was telling you, who talks about how our forefathers used to eat, he talks about the fishermen of old used to go on out in the sea catching out these big fish, marlin and swordfish and all that, tuna, large animals. They're putting into the holds of the ship. And what did they preserve it with? Salt. In fact, he gives an example that those guys used to eat 15 grams of salt a day. Never mess them a bit. How come just a bit of salt is messing us today?
It's other things.
We messed our food. Yeah. So your body is off balance. And what happens is that meat will stay that way. And then the Italians cure their prosciutto, their hams, their bacon. They do it with salt and then they go hang it to cure over a period of time. And that's how they make bacon. That's how bacon is made. And what do they use? Sodium. And over that process, it turns into sodium nitrite. So that's what I was telling you, bacon is not that bad to eat. If you can get, what messes those kind of foods is the feed the animal was eating. That's what messes us up, because they'll still go up to the grains. Grain-fed meat is not necessarily healthy. From the chickens to the, like if you eat a chicken, the road runner, we call them road runner, the grass-fed. That thing goes and whatever in the one, it eats worms, it eats grass, it eats berries, and it tastes awesome. Even the eggs, they taste very, very different. They may not be as huge, but they are very, very tasty. Unfortunately, with our greed now, we are selling kienyeji eggs. We call them that they are not kienyeji. The shell is as white as this.
Yep.
And it's a chemical they put in the feed. And they tell you, this is kienyeji, and they sell you at 600 shillings a tray.
So question is this.
It's costly, to answer your question. It's expensive. So I'm now finding hard. So one of the things that I did, because I did ketogenic and it backfired on me, I lost a lot of weight because on the wrong part is because I was trying to handle this thing to lower my blood sugar naturally. I lost enough weight. Actually, I'm just regaining it back because I was doing both intermittent fasting and a ketogenic diet. So what I did, I moved away from ketogenic diet. Then I learned how to diet properly. You do it in intervals. You can do it for 3 months, then go off for a month. I was doing it in Fululizo, and that is not helpful. The other thing is that I came up with my own ketogenic. I call it ketogenic Muito. Ketogenic from the bush. Muito is bush. But that's how we call anything local. That's not whatever. Sure. So what happens is for instance, if the things like fish, one of the best fish to eat is salmon. It's loaded with omega-3 oils. And the reason say the best omega-3 you can get from some plants, but it's not as helpful. I can't say it's unhealthy. It's good, but it doesn't have the key nutrients in omega-3. That's EPA and DHA that are really, really super essential for your whatever. I take the tablet I take today, I have it in my bag, it's 1,000 milligrams, and I take 2 a day. One during my whatever day, and then during my, like if I'm taking my dinner, then I'll take with it, because it's ideal when you're going to sleep.
I've never heard anything about anyone being prescribed or recommended more than 1,000.
Oh yeah, vitamin D.
No, I mean of the DHA, EPA.
DHA. No.
Are you saying the vitamin D is 1,000 a day, or the DHA?
Oh yeah, I thought you were asking whether something is else. Vitamin D3 is normally needed in higher quantities.
Sure. But you were saying your fish oil.
Yeah, like you can take up to fish oil, the omega-3. You can take up to that's what 1,000. You can take up to 3,000 a day. It's still the body utilizes every bit of it, because the good thing, so long as it's not these cheap ones, because again, cheap is expensive. You're talking about how much this costs. Supplements are quite expensive, especially the good ones, and you will know them by their price.
Which is now where I wanted to. So because of the price, maybe before we even go to that, and I'd like you to answer that at the end of it, is that if you're looking for the average person, the average guy without necessarily the means to access some of this more, what would you recommend they go for as substitutes that would still, get the work done?
Okay.
Yes.
I'd tell them to probably, people don't have the liking. If you grew up in the 70s, 80s, they were calling it mafuta ya debe, you remember? And that was just beef tallow. They would harvest a lot of beef and put it in a tin, a big tin that you cut open and then you scoop and weigh it for people. That's what we used to eat. That's what our forefathers ate. They would slaughter an animal to harvest that fat, and they keep it and use it. Yeah. And they were eating everything either raw, or the way they cook it or prepare it or roast it is the way they like to eat it. And the beautiful thing, they ate everything in its season. They never went looking for avocados when they're out of season. Right now we've done with the mango season. We're into more of the citrus fruits. That's what you find in the market. The body adapts to what it is that you're eating. Now back to price in terms of alternatives. For fat, beef tallow is cheap. You can go to City Market and buy beef tallow in a kilo. I buy lard. I prefer lard. Pork lard. I buy it at 200 shillings a kilo. And that will last me for a month or two.
Where are you getting it?
City Market butchery. Then I harvest that and I put it in jars and make sure they're airtight until when I'm using it. Then there's ghee.
But ghee is really expensive, and it's hard to get sometimes.
Super expensive, unfortunately.
It was missing for like 2 months this year, where you just couldn't find it.
It's been missing, but now it's back in the bucket.
Now, yeah.
And interestingly enough, the most expensive brand was KCC. Now it's the cheapest.
Yeah.
They've realized, let's lower our prices to get volumes, and it's working. And again, there's a lot of this push because of this kind of knowledge of the best oil to use.
Well, if you ask someone where it is, they don't know. They don't know what it is.
They don't know what it is. Most Kenyans don't eat ghee because they will tell you it doesn't smell nice. My mother is elderly. She's 87, so she has a caregiver who lives with her. That woman cannot cook with ghee. She can't stand it. Even when you bring it, stays in the cupboard for days. So you ask mom, says, she didn't cook with it. I don't eat it because she didn't cook it. She didn't like the smell. So what do you like? I like coconut oil. So we put mom I told you we managed to solve her joint issues, which she thought was arthritis. It was the oil she was using. And she uses coconut oil, and she uses the best way. Coconut is what we call the MCT oils. Ghee is also an MCT, what we call medium chain triglycerides. Now we're getting into the scientific stuff. I don't like going there because then
medium chain triglyceride.
Yeah, my pupils dilate and I get super excited. But that's what it is. So coconut oil, my mom then steams her food, or it's prepared. If it's githeri, it's boiled nicely. And then she doesn't eat githeri because of her dental. But then she takes a spoonful and puts it in her food, raw. And that's the best way to eat coconut oil. Very, very beneficial for her. And the reason why we did that, because we wanted to elevate her omega-3, and she's also on omega-3 supplements that help her.
So the oil, so that was also, just in terms of the oils, it's also from what you had said earlier about just trying to get more of your energy from oils.
Yes, so from the fats. So this is a story about now where we go back, you're asking me the source of margarine. When margarine now was created into, that guy would take now what was liquidy, almost a thick, viscous, whatever, and pass it through a nozzle, and it comes out into some really, really white fat on the other side, some sort of solid, what we call shortening. In fact, if you look at all the tins of Crisco, they're written shortening.
Yes.
Kimbo, shortening. Yeah, that's that fat. That oil is super, super damaging to you because, first of all that oil, including the ones that are calling these are save their loans cholesterol, most of the oils that are yellow, in those bottles that are yellow, they are clarified oils. And how do they do the clarification? If you've seen a lorry that is carrying palm oil from a tanker, carrying palm oil from Mombasa, when it overturns, that stuff is red, like this curtain, right? Mm-hmm. If you look at what West Africans eat,
yes,
it's
in
red.
Fact, yes, it's red.
And that oil, the oil that West Africans eat is cold pressed. It's fantastic. Very good for your body. But we now take it to a factory in Thika, I won't mention names, and we run it through this process of bleaching to make it as clarified as possible. Then we also then use heat to extract it. Now, oil has a condition that once it gets to a certain level of near boiling point, if it goes beyond that, it becomes carcinogenic. So by the time you're buying it, it's already near that space. Mm-hmm. Then you're using it to deep fry your mandazi. It goes to the other, it becomes what we call trans fats.
It's very interesting. I was watching this series on no, it was on Netflix, but anyway, on TV. And this gentleman wanted to sell some potato chips through an outlet, some farm gate sort of outlet. And so I think in that country you are required to go and get your chips tested, the oils, whatever you're using to get certification. And he goes and he's very bullish, he's very sure, nothing can go wrong. When they get the results, so carcinogenic.
Yeah.
That combination of the particular potato and that particular oil at a certain temperature, carcinogenic. So
it's largely the oil to blame for that. And sorry, I cut you short.
No, you're right.
Because now when oil gets to boiling point, we can't carcinogenic. Now we know what carcinogenic is. It's cancer causing. When will you know that you have cancer?
When you're dying.
5-6 years later, and you don't know what it is. Why am I getting cancer now? And the stuff that you fed your body earlier on, and you're not watching. The number one cause for cancer is actually elevated glucose and elevated insulin. That's why they tell you the cancer cell feeds on sugar. People don't know that connection.
Yes, there is.
But unfortunately, like I said, now because of now that insulin sensitivity on this end, where the whatever is green, and when you move to this other side when it's red, nobody knows what happens in between. And because I said again, they check your blood glucose, you're okay, until they find your blood glucose is elevated. That's probably year 5. Oh, you need to be on this medication. They still haven't checked a very important, whatever it's called, insulin serum that checks the level of your insulin over the years. Because what happens, the glucose can remain constant for quite a number of years, right? Insulin, however, is going up. And it's still when now it gets to another level, then glucose starts to catch up with it. That's time you become to T2D.
It's almost
type 2
like
diabetics.
Climate change.
Yes. And then I go type 2 diabetics, it goes to this other side. On the other side of the tipping point is what we call type 3 diabetic, which is diabetes rather. Alzheimer's. All these are related from this simple thing. And that's why for me, the focus mostly, the talks I give is like lower your insulin resistance, have insulin sensitivity, have your homeostasis in having your glucose at a level that your body can manage. How do you do that? By first of all, checking what you're eating. Remember the triad of health? The kind of exposure you expose. Because again, these foods mess up your mood. It messes up your mental health.
It does, yes.
Right? And because there's a link between how the brain utilizes it. But the brain, small as it is, right? It's actually enclosed with a very thick skull, right? As we try to call it, you have a thick skull, But that brain utilizes 20% of all the energy the body produces. All of it goes to the brain. So it's very, very critical. Now imagine if the machine is broken down here. How the brain will be affected, won't it? And that's a reality about mental health, which is why my focus is always we are looking at the wrong place. Look at the nutrients this person is taking. I mentioned the first time we talked, a study that was done of East African, the dietary implication on East African youth. And they found actually Kenyan youth eat the worst. But they also noticed that because, again, of economic levels rising, they tend to go for the worst kind of food. Because now kids cannot, my son orders in everything. If he has access to money, he'll order everything.
I heard someone say the other day that the chapati was like always associated with something special on the holidays.
Yes.
But now the university's doing that's actually breakfast every day.
That's what it became a go-to food. When I was growing up, chapati was special occasion. We never, and you could only eat so much. Then it's over. And what happens, I told you about the body adapts. It knows, Christmas season, chakona party. What it does, it just like adapts to that period. Then it's able to digest that at that point in time. Then again, the best way to eat your starches, which is why, again, I tell even in my colleagues, if you don't eat, because they love to eat, their go-to cereal is oatmeal. Oats are excellent. They say to have nutrients. They are whole carbs, But I can tell you, oat is one of the hardest things to digest. Just like wheat. Starches are not easy to digest as such. So the best way to eat the oats, eat it alongside another protein, right? Or some form of amino acids like fruits, eat with that. Don't eat it on its own, just put milk, then you take that down. Another bad food that was sold as healthy is granola. And now you could be a fan of granola. Because it's rolled in sugar. They use a lot of sugar.
I take a lot of granola. I should quit already.
Are you buying it off the shelf? That's the difference.
Yes.
Yes. Because I told you about UPF, remember that time, if you don't remember anything? Ultra-processed foods.
Yeah, granola, I mean, if you're not climbing a mountain and keeping it in your backpack for just some quick fuel, then you're just ruining your body, Charles.
Okay.
And even then they found even in sports, because people now tell you, eat your carbs, they're good for your sports. I remember Michael Phelps, when he was racing at the Olympics in Brazil, he had a calorie count, calorie allocation of 2,500 calories a day. Which is again wrong. When they look at calories, they don't look at the glucose conversion content.
Like the quality of the calories.
That's what they should be looking at, not necessarily the calories. Calories, by the way, the people who burn calories to lower fat, you don't burn lower fat. You just burn calories. They are good for Michael Phelps because he has like probably 2 or 3 races that day. So he's going to burn it all. But it's utilized unless now he feeds it with something more sustaining, which is what NBA players have found. They're actually big on fat meals nowadays. They actually increase their fat content because they found that secret. It sustains you for longer.
So I'm just curious. So look at a typical Kenyan table, and not Nairobi, because Nairobi now has become this place, this melting pot of different cultures, different dishes. People don't eat in what you would call conventionally anymore within. But let's go to maybe a rural Kenyan household. And the typical meal for breakfast would probably be the ugali from the previous night, and tea, or brown uji and tea.
When they have a little money, they buy bread.
They buy bread, that's breakfast. And it's taken immediately somebody wakes up.
Right.
Then maybe the kid runs to school. At lunchtime, there's probably be ugali and greens.
Right.
Or githeri, or something like that, isn't
easy
it?
to make for masses.
Yes, and then in the evening there'll probably be again ugali and something. And that's your typical, isn't it? But the greens, in the past, I don't know whether the same holds true today. There would be a variety. There'd probably be mchicha, different types. So they'd always be, experimenting with different types of green. Very, very simple fare for the most part. And therefore, would you say that if we were to revert to that simplicity, we would be in a good place? But on the other hand, you notice that there's a lot that is lacking in those meals.
Yes.
Isn't it? So developmentally, and even in terms of just sustaining yourself through a day, you'd probably not be in a good place. Now, suppose you were to advise that family on a few things to do, very practically.
You mean the rural one or
the rural family? Yeah.
Because some of us...
What do they do for breakfast? What do they do
even for the urban family?
Yes, so maybe you can just generally
very urban family. What I'd say is in terms of, again, the economy, the reality of the economy, a lot of people in the rural areas grow their own food. In fact, in Kenya, I'd say we largely eat organic because most of those guys can't even afford pesticides. So they'd rather just grow things that adapt to the culture of the soil. And I keep telling people the culture of the soil is actually, it comes from the word cultus, Greek word cultus, Latin word cultus. But the soil in and of itself has nutrients. And as they say, if you want to heal your body, heal your soil. So once you start using pesticides, you start now messing up the whole food science, as I was calling it earlier on. And you find that when you till your land to prepare whatever, what grows first? Weeds. Why? Because that's their natural environment. That is their cultus. That is their cult. So as human beings, we introduce something else called agriculture. That's where we get the word agriculture to work in the soil.
Interesting.
What do we introduce? We clear the weeds, till the land, and plant our own seeds that we prefer. They are still seeds, okay? Now they start to compete with the weeds. And you know what happens? They're competing with the weeds. They're almost going at par. But we now pull out the weeds to feed the rabbits. We pull out the dandelion, which is one of the fastest growing thing, one of the best foods you can ever eat as a human being. Anything a rabbit eats or a goat eats, you can. Did you know that?
Interesting.
Actually, Kalenjins are the ones who believe that anything a goat eats, you can eat.
Okay.
And that's why you find a goat is a very unique animal. Do you know it's the only animal that doesn't respond to antibiotics treatment? It does not. And a goat would rather go and eat its shrubs. It knows what to eat. And that's what's telling you now. We take a case of margarine. Sometimes in my house I'd get infested by ants, those black ants, all over, the tiny ones, the ones that go to
Yeah,
whatever.
they don't touch the blue band.
Those things will go like you test it, and we tested severally. We just put a small dollop of margarine somewhere on the tabletop, right? They'll come and just go around it. They won't
food.
touch that.
Yeah, they're not.
Even cats will not touch margarine.
Yeah.
They will not touch it. That should be a tell. That should be a signal to you. Yeah. And I told you any food that has a description that is more than 4 lines,
Run.
ultra-processed foods. So we were talking about the cost of this. So what I'd said that since they are growing their own food, they have a much better chance of getting nutrients. And even when they get the maize, right? They take the maize, they harvest it, dry it, and then they give it to the mill.
Yes, it
is not.
whole.
They don't go to make very white brand of whatever that is extracted, and very dangerous. And I'll say this here. I'm sure I'll get a flag from the Ministry of Health that requires all maize meal be fortified with vitamin A, D, and I believe E, right? And then they have that logo, fortified with A, D, and E for your better da. That is bad food. I can tell you for free, it is bad food, and I'll tell you why. Every time you see the word fortified in any food, please run away from it. Or put it back on the shelf where you found it. Take an example of the processes of making unga. They do a whole batch. They take away the nutrients on the skin, some of them even dejam it. The proteinous part of the maize is removed to have very, very white flour. Then they add the vitamins A, D, and E. I can tell you for free, because I'm a consumer of supplements, you can never get those vitamins in large quantities unless they're synthetic. So these are synthetic forms of A, D, and E. Because if you're going to do a whole shift of just doing unga, like what? Those bales of unga, they're doing 200 of them. Where are they getting all that vitamin A, D, and D to add?
And what's wrong with something synthetic?
Synthetic, they are not readily available. They actually become toxins.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a I can't remember the name. There's a compound that is used in all those whatever. It's like a caking agent in preserving the synthetic form of vitamins. They have very little nutrients. The body, I told you, and that's why you look at even those margarines that are fortified with those things. The cat is not touching it because the cat knows. It knows this is not good for me. So why would you take it when that thing goes and when I say it's not bioavailable?
Do you think a goat would eat it?
Goat?
A goat.
To eat?
Or would it eat blue band?
I don't know. I don't think
We
so.
should
But
test that.
the ones in Madari eat everything. They eat ugali, they eat whatever. But I'm saying like the fact that this synthetic form of supplements are not easily broken down in the body. So we say they're not bioavailable. They're not really bioavailable. So the bioavailability could be just like 15 or 20%. Then you're taking all these 85% of bad stuff that the body cannot utilize. And that's why all kind of like something like omega-3 that I mentioned, that is fish oil, is natural, just the way it came from the fish. That is more readily bioavailable. And some of them, the body knows how to enhance to increase their bioavailability. For instance, when you're going through ketosis, there's a way the body enhances your fat as ketones to be more beneficial to the brain than, say, glucose, to make it more bioavailable. So for me, I have a problem with those. So back to the unga that these guys make at home. They go make their own unga. They probably have some little milk because they milk the cow, so they'll take that or they ferment some, taking a very excellent form of food in mala. Mala is a superfood. It's excellent for you, whatever. I make my own sour cabbage, sauerkraut, which is very easy to make, just fermentation with salt. That's all. But it's loaded with nutrients. It's a very good antioxidant and very good for biogut flora, both in the stomach, in your lining, and in your small and large intestines. Very, very, very beneficial.
Take more.
I do, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, except in my family, there's just me and my daughter. Everybody else is anti anything milk.
Oh.
Yeah, and they're very militant.
I think it's an ethnic condition. They say Africans, most of people of the African community are the one who become lactose intolerant, especially at ages from 30 onwards.
Oh, fascinating.
And normally what happens with milk is like, if you remember, the baby suckles milk, but it pulls solids. Because they have the ability to curdle the milk when it gets to the stomach, which we lose that effect as we age. Again, some of these debilitating diseases, the reason why they affect us as we old is because the machine gets slower, just like an old car like mine. It gets sluggish, So you cannot, the things that you used to eat, you can't handle anymore. People who are lactose intolerant, by the way, most of them have no problem with mala.
Oh, okay.
Have no problem with mala or yogurt.
Yeah,
because it's fermented, or kefir, for that matter.
Yes.
Yeah? Those are fermented foods, and the stomach loves that because it increases your stomach biome. Actually, as the food comes in, which another thing we'll talk about, why the stomach is really supposed to be an acidic place. I don't know why you go to a doctor who gives you an antacid for a place that is naturally supposed to be acidic.
Yeah, that's a tricky one, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The pH of the stomach and the pH of the mouth are different.
So in terms of the skies in the rural areas,
so
we have
them back,
we have them. So we have the grains, at least. Like if it's something like millet or their ugali that they have, they're making from whole maize, isn't it? So to that extent, they are doing okay. You have milk, you have beans, I suppose.
Beans,
which is
beans, they eat all manner of legumes. They eat peas, they eat carrots. Like in the areas where they have those growing, they eat cabbage.
Yes.
One of the best foods in the world. In my world, cabbage is much more nutritious than spinach. It beats it by far because it's a cruciferous, what we call cruciferous vegetables, which are excellent for heart health. Cruciferous vegetables are cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, in that range.
Celery.
They're very, very good for your kidney and your heart.
Brilliant.
And the detoxing of your liver. A liver that's one of the most important organs with over 500 functions. In fact, right now, the new studies are saying 600. But it's the most abused. In my last talk, I was telling people how I saw this a long time ago until I came to this is abuse. Women who are going to get to Kenyatta Market to have their legs braided.
Yes.
That process is very painful. And my wife had a cousin who would pop in 2 Panadols as she's going to have her hair done.
Oh my gosh. As a preemptive strike against the experience she's going into.
Yes.
Oh man.
And probably she's going to sit there, no lunch. So that thing is churning in her stomach. But what people don't know, paracetamol is one of the worst drugs for the liver, especially when you're using it for all over long term. And what do you have? I have a headache. Pop this. You pop those pills and become second nature to you. The damage you're doing to your liver is immense. And unfortunately, to the liver to undo that, it takes a long, long time. And of course, this person who's abusing this is having a headache. They say a headache is to an adult what temperature is to a child. It tells you there's something wrong somewhere. Check it. A lot of headaches. When you're diabetic, you get diabetes headaches. When you're hypersensitive, you'll always have headaches. You don't treat the problem, not the symptom. That's showing you there's something wrong somewhere. And unfortunately, we don't get that. Back now to food. When they do that and they now know how to source their food, and it's normally a science, and especially the women. Number one role of a woman, the best thing is to make sure that children are fed and they are taken well, they are healthy, and they can sleep and go to school and do their functions well. Women do that very well. Naturally, women do that. They fend for their children. And so they know children are going to school, have gone to school. I have to start planting my cabbage patch here, my peas here. Then they have pawpaw trees. So, they pluck the pawpaw and put there, it's ripened, the children come and eat a slice of that pawpaw. It's mango season. When we're in rural areas, we just get yellow from eating mangoes throughout because they're all over the place. And what does the body do? It knows it's mango season. It adjusts its needs for sugar. And it's getting natural sugar. And now eating the mangoes, we don't make juice. We are eating it raw with its flesh, chewing it and swallowing even some of that seed, which is fiber. But the fiber is not digestible for a reason. Because it's supposed to go that all the way to the exit. And the reason it does that is to be able to enable the food to move within the system until it gets out. And once you take, for instance, even a ripe mango that way, mangoes are full of sugar, so are pineapples. But a mango, when you eat it whole, or even an orange, when you eat it whole with just peel and eat the flesh, sometimes the people have found the peel is also very, very nutritious. Mine I harvest and I dry it, then I powder it for my tea. The skin of an orange, it's full of nutrients. In fact, they say all citrus fruits, the skin has more nutrients than the flesh. Just so you know. So actually, when you eat a whole orange like that, you get all the nutrients. You're getting sugar that is slow released. And I'll come to that, the reason why you need to do that instead of making juices. Then you'll find these juices that are coming from the factory written, no added sugar. You're drinking poison. Why? You're drinking fructose. You're drinking concentrated fructose, one of the worst sugars you can ever take. It burns your liver because fructose cannot be metabolized by any other organ. You can't even have it absorbed in the stomach. It is only the liver that knows how to break it down. And it's a slow process. So if you have it elevated fructose, it burns your liver, it burns your kidneys because it still has to go through your kidneys. And for men, it burns your prostate. Fructose.
So you're talking about when you package the juice.
When it's packaged.
So you take your mango.
Or take a classic case of orange. If you are to make a glass of orange, you probably use 3 to 4, sometimes 5 orange, depending on the size.
So it wouldn't matter if it was even packaged. Packaged, obviously not good, but even if you're just making it at home, you probably shouldn't be having orange juice.
So all orange juice is very high in sugar. It's just like pineapple, very ripe mangoes, and apples. They're very elevated in fructose, the worst form of sugar you can get in and of its own. Now, you add those ones there, and then they tell you this is naturally sweetened, another code word that you should run from. Naturally sweetened, they'll probably use pineapple juice or grape juice or apple juice to sweeten your mango juice. Because if a company is running a factory that does mango juice, even when they're out of season, those mangoes are not necessarily sweet, the ones on their way out. They have to be sweetened by something. What do they add? The other stronger sweetened whatever. And forgetting that all that fruit in its mass has concentrated fructose. So ask yourself, when have you ever sat down and eaten 4 oranges at a go? You don't.
Never.
So why should you squeeze it and have it in a glass of juice? So that's the truth about fructose. Sorry, I'm still digressing from your answer. So these kids eat now naturally fruits that is slowly digested. But again, the only downside is right now because they have TV, they have access to this. The aspired lifestyle is what they see on TV. They see billboards of KFC, So when the mom or the father has a little money, send monthly, I want to treat my children. He takes them to KFC because the food is affordable. What you don't know is that he's actually depleting their health because those foods actually, they are not anabolic, which is growth enhancing. They are catabolic. They mess up with your growth. Yeah. An example is an egg. An egg is an anabolic, whatever. It's a life in and of itself. It contains a life. So it's actually growth enhancing. That's why eggs are super, super. They have over 11 different nutrients in them, all of them vital, including one called choline that is very rarely found in most foods. Choline that is used for breaking down your vitamins when you take them. When you another amino acids, breaking it down. Choline.
What other ways to get choline are there besides eggs?
I know there are some certain foods I am not so sure of, but I know eggs is.
It's like really high.
Yeah. It's my go-to meal. So in terms of now coming back to what I do, I will go and buy ndoma. Mostly when I travel to Murang'a, I prefer those ones. I'll buy ndoma, or my local brings them from Meru. You get the very good ndomas. They're not grown in Nairobi sewage.
I know.
There's a problem with ndoma arrowroot. It takes the water exactly where it is. So it will grow, but it leaves sewage water. Yeah, and it'll just kind of...
Let's start over. What are you warning me about? What is this?
So we're talking about the breakfast that I go to in terms of affording it.
And which particular plant is that absorbs the nutrient?
The arrowroot. It's called arrowroot.
Oh, I love it.
Taro.
Yeah.
Taro.
Yeah.
Yeah, it actually absorbs that water.
So you need to be careful where you get it from.
Yeah, be careful where you get it from.
Yeah.
So one of the things I know that supermarkets are very keen, like Naivas, they wouldn't buy anything from any supplier in Nairobi. They have out-of-country suppliers. There's an area in Murang'a that they grow arrowroots, whatever, and you'll find them now in the roadside markets that are like buying stuff. So you buy that. Cassava is one of the easiest things to grow.
A quick question about cassava.
Yeah.
In terms of, where was I reading this? That somebody was saying this almost nil nutritional value. Is that?
No,
Oh,
it has starches, but it still belongs to starches, which I told you they are not.
You have to
easy.
go easy on.
Yeah, they don't break down easily. So that's why we eat our starches with our greens, with our meats. So we never eat. Okay, occasionally you can eat ugali and mala, which is sour milk. You can eat mala with that, but you're getting the nutrients from the milk if you're not milk intolerant. But cassava in of itself, it's healthy because it's natural, right? And then you're not eating cassava alone. You're like I assume you're coming from Western Kenya.
Yes.
Peanuts, very, very prevalent there. Excellent source of fats. And any other nuts that you can eat. We don't get the other nuts that grow on trees except macadamia, which we get a lot in Murang'a. And then you get avocados do very well I have a few trees. They do very well in Murang'a, and those are your go-to foods in terms of healthy. So these kids, they'll go eat, because when we're in Ushago, which you call up country, we used to go to the riverside, break a cane of sugar and just and that thing was excellent for our dental work. And the sweetness, we're getting natural sugar that's coming wholesome in your body, and the body knows to utilize it. And sometimes we'll probably not eat lunch and go home, and when you're super hungry and have a dinner, the brown ugali and greens mom has made, The only problem would be now what sort of mafuta it gets. And I remember even from the longest, because we used to rear pigs, we would harvest the lard. Because in the rural areas, when you rear a pig, there's a day for sale. You go and hang your advertising, come and sell, and you slaughter. The health officer comes and checks it, certifies it. Then you slaughter it, and it's sold within a day or two. And whatever meats that need to be eaten quickly, those ones are put in a big sufuria. You boil them, including the skin. It's a delicacy. You splice the head, you boil it in a cauldron, and you harvest all that soup. And now that fat, the fatty area, like the belly and the skin, you boil it and get that fat, and you're left with tiny dried pieces of meat called ngarango. Oof. Delicacy. You throw that in your greens and you eat with ugali. Your
heaven.
Palate is in heaven. And now that oil is what you'd use to cook your meals slowly. Now that is the old thing. But now because of advertising and all this exposure, they're told eat healthy. They buy Lianto, they'll buy Golden Fry. I'm sorry to mention these names, but those things have been found to be messing our health more than anything else, actually. because they say the kind of omega-6 you need to be exposed to, it's actually 0.4 something percent. That's according to the American standard. But now you find in those oils is actually up to 25-30% elevation of omega-6, which is a horrible, horrible oxidant. It slowly sends your body to inflammation. And that's why when you eat a big bowl of chips with nothing, that you just ate your fries and probably a sausage there, all of a sudden you're so drowsy and you just want to sleep and your belly is full. It's because of now this is inflammation taking place in your body. And over time, that gets worse over time.
Okay. So I don't know how much time we have covered so far. I think we have done a fantastic job, almost 3 hours worth. Now, I wanted to bring this to a close. I think in terms of mental health, you have addressed that quite effectively as far as I'm concerned. The connection between...
I would like to mention about what you need to be eating if you have mental health issues.
So yes, in fact, before you go there, and as we close, what we need. But what I wanted to know, first of all, is now for you, can you tell us what the outcome of your journey with food as medicine, quote unquote, has been? Where you at now? Are you on any medication? Are you completely off medication? Are you doing a mix of the two?
So this is what I do, because this is a journey, and that's why, because a lot of diabetics, when they go through this process and they're able to reverse one of those things, they can go into what you call a low glucose, the blood glucose lowers, and then they believe they are healed. There's always that is, you celebrate too early. I've seen it happen to other people. It has happened to me as well.
Okay.
And then I was forced to go back to medication, back to metformin, because it's considered the safest you can go for a time. Or sometimes then adjust with insulin for a time to go back so that I can maintain. But because I was not armed with the knowledge that I have today. One of the things that I do today, the only remaining battlefield that I have on me is a peripheral neuropathy. I have to take some certain medication, but most of it is I do it together with supplements. But I supplement a lot naturally. It's an expensive whatever, but that way then I'm able to optimally balance my sugar to a greater degree. I have very good seasons when now I would go off medication totally and lower it with food. One of the things that I know that is a bit of a challenge is being able to know what to eat, especially when you're traveling. Because you're exposed to hotel food, airline food, and all that.
You're not in
That's
control
one.
of.
Or when you now go and you're invited, let's go for dinner or let's go eat here. It becomes a challenge now knowing what to go for. But the reason I'm saying is that particularly because I've been able to isolate one of my key culprits, which is oils loaded with omega-6. I avoid those ones like whatever, or anything that has honey in it, because honey is concentrated fructose, in case you didn't know. And I told you how damaging fructose is. Honey you can take. In fact, the people who tell you healthy honey, take a small bit of it because it has other nutrients. What we do, we harvest the honey and we leave out the other healthy stuff like the comb itself that you should be chewing. So what happens is that people with peripheral neuropathy, specifically after diabetes episodes, because peripheral neuropathy is your nerves that have been damaged. And your nerves follow and cause the same cause as your blood system, your veins and arteries. So it's part of that system. And all of them, especially when they come from here, they come from one main nerve that's called the vagus nerve, somewhere here. It's called C10. You can Google about it. That vagus nerve touches on every organ When I go for my treatment to a chiropractor, they actually they just massage here. They follow it from here. They massage, and you actually feel what's happening to your toes like that, because it's all related. So what happens is that sugar, and especially fructose, damages your nerves that are protected by an insulation called the myelin sheath, right? It's the one that protects the nerves. What's the myelin sheath? It's made up of a fat molecule. It's actually made up of insulin that comes from whatever, just like it forms a sheath. So it's a fat molecule. So the sugar attacks it and it wears out and leaves the nerves exposed. So you start getting those very painful. I can describe the pain. Sometimes it's a burning sensation, just slow burning. When you touch everything, you're hot. Sometimes it's these pins and needles that never stop permanently. Sometimes it feels like you're wearing a t-shirt that has barbed wire inside. It's horrible, painful. And sometimes you can't even wake up. There are instances I would wake up at night and put my feet in a bucket with ice and water just to cool the feet, because I can't sleep, because it affects your sleep. So what have I found out from my journey here? Because of eating the nutrients, one of the things that I like eating mostly is the cruciferous vegetables. The cabbage, I can eat cabbage like a snack. On its excellent, actually, when it's thin, slice it, toast it in mincemeat. And when I go for mincemeat, I always make sure like it's 50% fat, 50% lean. Then you mix it. That's the best. In fact, when you're making homemade sausages, that's the best. So you toast it now with your cabbage and what have you. It's amazing, amazing.
Cabbage with peanut butter and rosemary.
Thank you. I'm going to try that. Yeah. Peanut butter, again, it's a go-to fat. I go for that. I go for lard. I go for olive oil. When I'm rich, I get that. The problem is that most of these things are quite expensive. That's the only downside. What has happened to my health? If I do, like today I had my breakfast at 1:30 actually. The level of clarity, there's no, your mind is not clouded, it's not whatever. But I took a coffee in the morning with, we call it bulletproof coffee. Coffee, you blend it with
MCT oil or coconut.
Yeah. MCT oil, coconut, or butter. And you take that. It gives me satiated up till when I have my other meal. I don't have brain fog anymore. I'm very clear. My speech is better. Another thing that I do is that I wear my headphones and I'll sing, because I'm alone in the car driving. I'll sing loudest of my voice, because singing has a way of even massaging the vagus nerve.
Okay.
So singing is beneficial. And that's why people who sing a lot, after that, they're feeling very, very good.
I think people activate their vagus nerve in the car, but it's not usually from singing. It's like shouting obscenities in their cars.
that may have a catabolic effect. But yes, those are some of the things I do. Again, I talked about laughter. And then the other thing that took discipline is looking, how do you do that? I've been able to discipline myself to just avoid stressful situations. If it didn't work and I can't fix it, let it be. And I get that from the Bible. From Jesus himself, do not worry about what you'll eat and drink tomorrow. And because like, you have your food for today. Yeah, he said, look at the birds. They don't even plant, but I feed them every day. And they don't worry. So why are you worrying? And you're much better than they. So I do that, and then proactively I just avoid, naturally, for my own mental health, I avoid confrontative situation. Confrontation, whatever it is, I will just ask for the grace for me to be calm even when somebody's saying this. And I remember a book I read some time back. There's a guy, sorry, I digress a bit. There's a guy who was watching this young man working at a front office in a hotel. And there was a convention going on, so rooms were really, really scarce. So guys have come, and there's a queue at the front desk because guys are checking in. And as this guy comes and he just bangs on the table, and first of all, he jumps the queue and comes to the front. I have a reservation. And then he comes and says, oh, Mr. So-and-so, checked here. Yeah, we have your room. He said, da. Your single room is that. He said, no, I booked for a double. And the young man said, no. It shows that it was what was confirmed was a single. And I said, yeah, just started yelling all those words that massage your Vegas. Sure. Yelled at a young man. I don't know what kind of setup you run there. Banged the table and walks away. And the young man just turns to the next guy and says, next, please. How may I help you? So the guy's like, why are you so calm after whatever? After this guy called you names and did those, like, he probably had a bad day. I won't let his bad day ruin mine.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the perspective then I've adopted, that I don't let anything come into my whatever. And if I have a problem in doing something, I'll just say so. Yeah. And especially even when things like when you're in a relationship, say a marriage relationship, because those things, we don't go to school for that. There are no manuals. They don't come in manuals. You just have to learn how then do I work with my partner to resolve issues, for the peace of mind of everyone, Because unfortunately today with these gadgets, we're exposed to all manner of teachings and all manner of activism that has gotten into that space, and a lot of things are lost. I realized that because I used to be an activist with so many other causes, I realized, why am I doing this? Because all those years of activism, I didn't even achieve anything meaningful, if you ask me, for the causes that I was passionate about. Anyway, I think I was trying to answer your
where you are.
Right
Yes.
So I'm in a good place. However, I'm also very cautious because, again, I didn't give my disclaimer. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm just a person who learned to love and imbibe things. So I read stuff and I understand it, and I keep it in here. But then I realized I have so much knowledge that needs to be put into some sort of practice. This is why we're having such conversations.
And so how do you put it into practice? How do you put it into practice beyond yourself?
Okay.
I mean, this podcast obviously is one way. Are you also addressing organizations, or do you have a particular talk that you do?
Okay, I've just started. I've given other talks to families, but I did have one formal talk last Saturday. At a church near Two Rivers, and a group about 40 plus thereabouts. That was like a formal one, but now I'm actually going into trying to make something out of it that I can actually interest a lot more people into it. We talked about corporates. There's some corporates, the nature of their jobs tend to have a lot of stress issues, like media where I was working, the whole media.
Well, what surprises me about corporates is me living in Kenya, I tend to go to a lot of conferences or workshops or events or whatever. And a lot of it's nonprofits, charities, people who are doing good things, and people who sort of need you to go through a curriculum throughout the day from the morning to the afternoon hours. And not a one of them has ever served healthy snacks. Like when you go to a place where it's all like it could be about nutrition, it could be about education, it could be about women's rights, it could be about, and it's like they're Sprite and orange Fanta and cookies, and it's like, all right, ready for next workshops? Like I thought, is there not a single person who thinks that maybe this is the worst idea for a workshop?
So may I say something around that? What I feel is that
excuse me.
Is it a lot of what's going on?
Even that run we were part of. Remember that run?
Yes.
It's like, well, what's going on here?
So you know where we are at? Is that you're talking about aspiration?
Yes.
Informing even the decisions around food for people in, say, the rural areas. So it is where we are. Where we are in terms of evolution, Kenyans are at that place where there are some things which are now coming to them, which are more readily available, which just maybe some 10 years ago were not there. And therefore you find tons of that stuff being offered as a standard practice everywhere you go. Samosas, for instance.
Right.
You'll always find, like you're saying, soda. You will always find that stuff.
And when they don't do soda, they bring now the juice pack. These are healthier.
These are healthier. Right. But it is that aspirational thing. It's like we're coming into that space. But now there are also people who are evolving to the next, to my mind, the next space where they've been doing wait a minute. We are consuming too much of this. But the people who are running the show, and because it's also conventionally accepted across the board, and many catering setups do mostly that. It would be the odd person trying to come up with something different. It would probably be very costly, So you're right that a lot of times that's what you find, but nobody's paying attention because of also some of those challenges.
The other challenge we have is because of even the people who should offer that kind of information, say nutritionists. In fact, I've come to the place where I don't see doctors for diabetes anymore, because I realize they can't help me and I manage to convince other people not to do so, not to see them. And nutritionists, because they follow the wrong food pyramid that we've known for years, that has never been upgraded since the US did the Food and Drug Administration revised it. But they used it up to 2008 until Harvard came up with theirs, which is what they put in the model. But it's still very wrong because it still focuses on lowering your meats and telling you to eat lean meat, which is actually not as healthy.
Right.
In fact, the healthiest meats are organ meats. If you want to heal, if you have liver issues and you want to heal your liver, eat kidney, eat all those organ meats. Eat matumbo.
How do you feel about gizzards?
Huh?
Gizzards?
Oh, well, awesome. I love them. I feel nothing for chicken, by the way. I lost whatever, but gizzards.
So where, in terms of this, like a lot of this information you're presenting today, at least for me, contradicts most of what I've known to be healthy eating habits. Where do you get your information?
So there are quite a number of doctors who are teaching.
So let me put it this way. In other words, are you sourcing it from one space where somebody has taken time to codify and come up with a new paradigm?
Yeah.
Or are you doing like this?
I used to be a victim of all this especially YouTube, everything pops up. Drink this and lose weight overnight. Who does that? Which body can adapt to that? So I used to be that kind of father to go after this, and all the years, and that's when I went into now looking at the medical data. I will look at a doctor and he tells you, if you click here, you'll find the link to this document. Then I go and I download that PDF and read it for myself to see whether it corroborates to what he was advising me. So I have had to do a bit of homework, which is the research I'm talking about 8 years now.
It's incredible, isn't it?
Yes, it's amazing. And then that way, then you discover other doctors. Jason Fung is a famous cardiologist who has managed to move into the space of diabetes by just focusing on fasting, and has helped many of his patients even avoiding surgery and being able to heal them without a group of doctors I stumbled on in a Doshuela documentary in Germany, who went into just treating their patients by weaning them off medication, including cholesterol medication, and they get better. They tell you all you need is just eat your fruits and take walks regularly. And people come back 3 days later healthy. So I have had to do a lot of that to be able to learn. Then now I've formed my kind of close circle of doctors or people who deal with that kind of nutrition. And especially people who are sufferers like myself, who've been able to do this. I've found guys with issues like managing serious issue, like especially type 1 diabetes, because that's permanent. Guys who are doing a really good job, guys who are dealing things. A guy who managed to reverse his failed kidneys. He managed to reverse. And now he has a podcast he's teaching people.
So sorry to interject with this one. The interesting thing that I always find is now, in your case, the information you've come across has been to go against the grain.
Yes.
And to go into
But I'm not alone in that space.
Yes, I know. But what is happening is you have had to forage in, nooks and crannies here in farm. And now a lot of that information is sitting with you. But when you try to present it, say, if you're to present that information to a group of medical practitioners who do conventional medicine, you might get pushback.
Absolutely.
Because, first of all, they will query your credentials.
True.
Then secondly, everything they know in terms of the mainstream understanding of how things work, none of it, is consistent, with what you're saying.
Yeah.
So if then you begin to put this word out there, you may need backers within the profession who are able to corroborate what you're saying. And I don't even, firstly, maybe it's a bit of an uphill task.
It is.
I don't know if I agree. I think if a medical doctor or nutritionist is someone who's current, they're probably going to agree with about 90% of what Kamau has been talking about, because what you'll find is practitioners who are been in the career for a while, they're probably drawing from scientific papers or whatever was coming across their desk 20, 30, even 15 years ago. But I don't know, because almost everything you've talked about has been something you've been able to find in a peer-reviewed journal or something you found where there was a double-blind placebo-controlled study.
Exactly.
And you found that, but you had to go all over and choose.
Yes,
but there are medical professionals who also actively do that. But I would say my guess is that the majority of them, I was schooled, I learned what I learned, now I'm applying it, and they don't have the time to do the sort of thing he would do. But
that's I agree with you. In fact, therein lies the challenge you would have, because what you would be doing is a non-medical practitioner would be presenting a medical thing to them for the first time.
Well, it's like us doing a mental health podcast.
Yes, and it would for them be like, hey, wait a minute, who's this guy?
Who's this guy? Yeah.
And then it would take them a while, because there is that some sort of tough, they want to own their tough and defend their tough. And then it takes them a bit of time for them to, So I agree with you that a lot of it is really, it might sound esoteric.
Yes.
Initially.
Yes.
But it's not esoteric. It's just that somebody doesn't know about it but when they know about it and they know the source, they're likely to go, aha. But now the thing that, because what you would want to do in a Kenya where I don't know what the statistics for diabetes
they're horrible. Just like any other thing, including cancer, they're horrible.
So what you would want to do,
especially in certain regions,
I know, is maybe turn this into something that is immediately useful to thousands of people.
Yes.
And therefore you need to package it in a way that then gets the support, the currency and the support of all the stakeholders. Yeah. And I suppose that is, in terms of your next steps, the most challenging bit is firstly putting it in and then being able to get their buy-in.
I can try and answer that in the way that it's a challenge, yet not a challenge.
Yes.
Because one of the things that I'm very, very clear on, and I prefer to people, is that I am just one person who was sick and tried this and it worked for me. And I told you each body is different. And I put that disclaimer. My disclaimer is very, very clear. Please don't listen to me. I'm just offering this not as a medical doctor, but only somebody who tried and it worked. And I keep telling people that every time I make a talk, I'm your guinea pig. I won't tell you something that I haven't tried myself. I tried this, it backfired, then I switched to this. This is how it is working. That's one. Secondly, there's quite a number of doctors in Kenya who have now. There's one doctor who was referred to, who was a friend of mine, although she went abroad. She was in a group of. She was dealing with a group of doctors because she's in the medical field, and there was one oncologist, and she used to tell him, "You should listen to Kamau." And the oncologist told her, "Please come call Kamau to come speak to me because I'm losing a lot of patients."
Oh.
When I was going for this talk last Saturday, I sent the promo to the one I shared. I shared with my doctor. I'm not quick to mention names because I'm just protecting his privacy.
Yes.
He said, fantastic. This is a doctor who calls me, Kamau, how do you say we use apple cider vinegar? Because even him, now he's challenging this thing. And in their community, there's a whole whatever. Right now, there's a group of doctors in the US who had a conference post-COVID. And these are the guys who were cancelled out, switched off, deplatformed. They had a conference in Texas. And many of those guys are the guys who moved away from the allopathic medicine of just dishing out whatever, which goes against the grain even in that whatever. But there are statistics that are showing even during COVID, a lot of Americans went to alternative medicine as opposed to conventional medicine because we're not seeing the results. And in Kenya, there's a growing number of them.
Okay, I'm glad
Thankfully,
to hear.
at my talk last Saturday, one of them was present in the crowd. He is my friend. I know him. But he told me, actually, nowadays, I moved to functional medicine, which is what I'm talking about. And functional medicine looks at the whole physiology of a human being. And they say the brain is connected to everything else. And the brain is connected to the eyes, it's connected to your nose, it's connected to your glands, it's connected to every organ. And all these guys work in concert to have a fantastic tune that is called homeostasis. When one goes off balance, the whole watch is useless. So those are doctors who are doing that. And right now, he told me he'd like to work with me. And there are a group of about 11 doctors who are doing this. You know what I mean? So again, I'm now amongst friends. There are people who are doing this.
Yes.
And our focus is how to even move it to bring it even to the level of nutrition.
Yes.
And even bring it to a level of policy where now the government starts looking, because the government recognizes alternative medicine. Why can't they recognize nutritional medicine, which actually, like in most Western whatever, was never taught maybe until recently, which is what I was telling you, Eastern Europe and Asia, they've done it over the years. But Eastern Europe, and I gave you a classic case of Hungary, they never shut down during the COVID. Hungary didn't close down. And why? Because their diets are amazing. In Africa, our diets are amazing. The green herbs we eat, those bitter, what is it? Managu no sugar. Do you know anything that is bitter is excellent for your liver? Any food that you take that has bitterness, including, I like to ferment my lemon.
Really?
I put the water for nearly a whole week in the fridge. Then when I cut now the lemons in pieces and then put them in the water, and it becomes bitter. I'm going for that bitterness. That is a cleanser for my liver. So there's so many things that you can do that are, again, you are saying, these are guys who are going to, especially in diabetes, they go to the Iki to a cure. There's no cure. We just have to keep upping the medication, and they give you metformin up to 1,000, and you're not getting better. They pump you full of insulin, yet you have elevated insulin. The people who need to inject insulin are type 1 diabetes because they are not making any. Okay? So all this knowledge is coming out in the fore. And to give you a historical example of how medicine keeps evolving, do you know how George Washington died? Would you know?
No, I don't.
You don't. George Washington was bled to death.
Leeches?
They bled to death. They bled him to death. The doctors were seeing him.
With the leeches?
Why? Yes. What they did, they cut him and they found his blood was blue. What they said. And you and I know blood that's coming from the arteries is deoxygenated, turns blue. So they said, this is the one that's killing him. Let's cut him and bleed this thing out. He died.
Oh, my gosh.
Until many years later, the science improved. They realized, okay, there are two systems for blood. One, once it's red, it goes to the organs. When it's done, it comes back to be reoxygenated. Many years later, they updated their books. So the same thing needs to happen now, especially when it comes to nutrition. And secondly, we've messed up our foods. Our food is irrecognizable. It is no longer what we're eating naturally. And even what we think is natural, we are growing it the wrong way with pesticides, with chemicals that are harmful to our system, that are just making us sicker and sicker and sicker. A classic example is the US. Sorry to use you as against
No
the US.
problem.
The US has, they did a study of 18 countries to check their gross per capita versus their health outcomes. They found that the US, from that group, the US was spending the most on healthcare. Yet it has the worst outcome in wellness amongst its citizenry. In fact, in the US, they say the life expectancy is dropping every year in the US. And 90% of it is diet related.
Yeah.
So in terms of now where we are going with this, I don't want to do it alone. One of the reasons I've held back for the longest is because I needed a support system from like-minded professionals in that area. Those guys won't have invalidated a doctor who's just turned out. There's a doctor I was told of in Naivasha. His clinic is full because he stopped going into that and went into nutrition. Dr. Jason Fang, look at him in whatever. He went into that. Dr. Grandi, also a cardiologist, a heart surgeon. He study on what we call lectins. Lectins are natural insecticides. The food makes for itself through the skin. Wheat, beans, rice, tomatoes, capsicum, anything that has seed in it that has lectins. And one of his famous YouTube videos, food doesn't want to be eaten because it protects itself. And those lectins are the ones that mess up our stomachs and reduce the villi that hold the mucus that is protective on the lining of the stomach, that protects now the stomach walls from the acidity that is elevated when we're eating. Now the gallbladder releases to digest your food and detoxify it. So there are so many doctors who moved in that space, and thankfully, I think the biggest thing that ever happened to us as human beings is the advent of internet. Because now we know we can compare, and that's for me then has been a very good resource, or rather a source of information in getting to know what it is. And right now then I form my own club of sorts. The go-to guys that I go to listen. If I hear something countering, say, intermittent fasting or ketogenic diet, I listen to them nonetheless. Then I go to the other doctors, the proponent, to see now what makes sense. Then if something doesn't make sense there, then I try it for myself. I know how I'm feeling about this.
Because I think what I like about what you're doing, and I think in many ways it's also what we're attempting to do with Me I'm Mental here, is that we are not subject matter experts, and we are not pretending to be. We are, however,
hungry for knowledge, thirsty to find out more, open-minded, analytical, the things that make someone curious and maybe hopefully add to the conversation.
Yeah, and so and there is obviously the big challenge where what you're trying to put out there is something that is backed scientifically to the extent that's possible. It's credible, and it will help somebody, even if it's not packaged in the strictest of scientific terms, but at a minimum you're raising awareness first. And that's where we start.
I'm giving a patient's perspective.
And you're giving up, yes. And firstly, we always start by raising awareness.
Yeah. So for that reason, they just sort of it's because one of the things that I stopped seeing doctors, because I think they're not helping me. And if anything, they'll just continue with that death sentence. They say, this thing has no cure, this thing has no cure, this thing. That became the song.
So at least I like that. So because once people become aware that there are alternatives, and then hopefully, even in their own investigations, they adopt methods that are structured in terms of, really finding out what works, what doesn't, what. eventually you might find that this thing, snowballs into a thing that makes a difference for a movement, that makes a difference for many people.
Yeah.
And you're right, because the other thing that I wanted to point out, which I also find very interesting, is that we were talking about the cost of nutrition, but remember, there is the cost of treatment. It's probably
just the cost of
that.
So isn't it?
Yeah.
So when you're thinking about cost benefit, you might find that, just go and buy the chia seeds already. And
Can I give you a classic example, which is what I use even when I'm talking to people? Actually, but I can't afford ghee, it's very expensive. I just ask them a question: how much do you spend on airtime? They spend thrice as much on
How
airtime.
much do you spend on a NHIF card that's not accepted?
Yes. Just the treatment alone will cost you an arm and a leg.
Yeah.
Why can't you just, and then we've never, the allopathic, which was, but they adopted very recently. In the 1890s, guys used to treat food with nutrients that they found in leaves or whatever it is. That's why in 1939, there was cocaine medicine for epilepsy and autism, and marijuana. All those things were things that were used. Then we moved into allopathic medicine, which tells you this body is a combination of chemicals. So feed it these chemicals. But nobody tells you whether that chemical, first of all, is bioavailable. Secondly, what else does it mess? Because some medication will give you relief. Panadol will give you relief. Sorry to use that. Let me use paracetamol, which is whatever name. It will give you relief for whatever. All it does is just like numb the areas that were hurting. That's why an hour later you're back. My headache is back. Now I have migraines, and I don't know. Do you know the number one causes? One of the major causes. Can't say number one, but number one major causes of migraines. Do you know what it is? The H. pylori virus, rather bacteria.
That's weird.
Yes.
That's really strange.
H. pylori will give you horrible migraines.
I didn't even, okay.
And it's happening in your stomach.
Gut, yes.
I told you about the villi. Once the villi wear out because of lectins, they leave space now, the mucus is worn out and the acidity is able to penetrate here. Guess who loves living here? That H. pylori bacteria loves hiding that, whatever. And what does it like? Less acidic stomach. What are you doing? Drinking 8 glasses, overhydrating. And when you eat your food, you take it again with a lot of water because you think it will help with the digestion. No, what it does, it increases the pH of the stomach. The stomach is supposed to be 2 to 3 on the pH level. That's very acidic because bile that comes out there is a concentrated hydrochloric acid for a reason. There's a valve called the esophageal sphincter valve at the top, and there's a pyloric sphincter valve at the bottom that close after you eat. Why? So that the hydrochloric can work on the food. First of all, disinfect it. Secondly, break it down and absorb nutrients before it's released to the lower small intestine through the duodenum. That happens. Now, when you take water, when you've just eaten, what does the sphincter valve do? It relaxes because now the place is less acidic. Then you get something called pepsin, which goes up there. You develop GERD. Gastroesophageal reflux disease, because the valve is loose. And since there was some bit of acid, it keeps going up, backing up like that, hicking up. And then, because it does the same on the way out, some food that is not fully digested starts ending up in your stomach. You develop now another problem called things like SIBO, small intestine bacterial overgrowth. Your stomach is always rumbling. You have a lot of gas, right? Sometimes you feel constipated. Sometimes you feel like stool is loose. You run to the loo, there's nothing. So all those things are things that we are learning now, thanks again to internet and exposure to some doctors who give like 2-3 hours talks like this, I listen and imbibe all that and listen to them.
Well, it's no longer protected knowledge. It's not something that you have to go into a library in order to ask the librarian to help you research something. It's all available now. And with that access, it seems like we have a lot of responsibility to turn that knowledge into something that applies. Yeah. And the missing link, I think, on the purpose of even this podcast, the missing link of how much the mind is fixed with the body and how much the body is fixed by nutrition, and therefore a myriad of things that sort of have a cascading domino effect from the way it's planted to the way we consume it. And I really appreciate you being able to sort of breach this conversation for us, because I think there's probably even more conversations that we could have. Because there's so many different elements of health, and almost all of them will somehow affect mood. And we know that mood over time can also affect attitude, and attitude over time can become a condition. And this, once again, there's another cascading effect of our mental health based on all these different things. So anywhere from chronic reflux could probably ruin you and your family's life just as much as anxiety or stress or something like that, because it's a cause, because of this domino effect. But having said all of that, we should probably begin to just close it up here. And quick take. What is maybe as we closed? I mean, do you have any other questions at the time, Charles?
No, I think we
just what's your favorite brain food?
Brain food, the cruciferous vegetables I talked about. Yep. Magnesium is a must, and healthy fats.
Do you think magnesium is mostly achieved through supplementation, or is there a particular food that you enjoy the most?
Magnesium, you get plenty of it from avocados.
Okay.
Avocados will give you the magnesium you need.
It has the fats, the healthy fats to keep you moving.
Excellent fats that are good for you. It has EPA and a bit of DHA, but not the same quality as whatever. But it's a very good fat. It has the best cholesterol. You can get HDL. It's loaded with that, and it's all natural. And it is not a vegetable; it's a fruit. Then it also has potassium.
Yes.
So
probably even more than bananas.
Zinc, magnesium, I think that I would really go for, and potassium for your brain. But mostly magnesium and zinc go a long way to help. And then be on fish oil. If you can't get the supplement, go and buy Nile perch.
Nile perch, and just eat that as
rich in omega-3.
Dry fry, or what are you doing?
Whichever way you want to make it. Nile perch is not a very tasty fish; it's a very oily fish. Yeah. So the taste is acquired over time.
I don't mind.
Yeah, I don't mind over Nile perch.
And I like the avocado, half an avocado with 4 eggs with cayenne pepper over top. Hopefully fried, not the avocado fried, but the eggs fried in bacon.
Cayenne pepper is loaded with lectins.
Yeah.
But it's also, I love it. I just go to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then one of the things also you introduce, which helps the improvement here, which also directly helps your frontal lobe, because the frontal lobe is the one that does all your functions, if you know about your brain. The back part of the brain is the one that manages signals and sends the signals to the frontal lobe to do the action, to tell it, the frontal lobe to give the instruction on what needs to be done.
Okay. And so?
One of the things during digestion you need to be able to do, which is helpful for the liver, and to the liver is whatever, is turmeric. Turmeric is amazing. Not to mention the other ones that are not whatever, because there's an enzyme called curcumin the active ingredient in turmeric is curcumin. Now, say a teaspoonful of turmeric, you can mix it with your water or your milk or your juice, then put a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper.
The two together help the other things become more bioavailable.
So what happens with the black pepper, it multiplies the curcumin strength by nearly 2,000%. So you don't need a lot of it. It's one of the best detox for your liver and kidney, and just general wellness. And for diabetes, it lowers blood sugar naturally. As I was telling you, these are things that I've tried. So I can sit with a doctor and we talk about what they were going to give me in the metformin that gave me. I was put on Lipitor for It's a statin. Statins are used for lowering cholesterol. Those things made me sick. My neck was stiff for days on end here, and I was put only on 20 milligrams per day, once a day. I went back to the doctor and told him, please get this thing off. Anyway, I digress. We could talk here till
Well,
morning.
I think we could have a spice episode. We could have an episode about just about fats, and we can have it. But the takeaway, of course, is that we have a connection between our body and our mind, and oftentimes we neglect actually doing any sort of deep dive into how nutrition specifically can affect our mental health. Mm-hmm. We talk about working out. We've talked about yoga, meditation, etc. Mm-hmm. But nutrition is a key element. And so for those of us who are still tuned in, I think one of the great takeaways was just the sheer amount of energy that the brain actually takes. And so because it's so it needs so much energy, we should be very conscientious
good energy
of the kind of energy we put into our bodies in order to achieve that. Yeah. And so having said all that, between Charles and I would like to thank you, Kamau, for coming on. And you certainly are welcome to come back or write a special article or blog for us that we could publish and any sort of other information. Yes. You know, it is important that anyone out there also, when you do search for medical information, just like the caveat that we have on our podcast, saying, "Hey, we're not doctors here, but we are curious and we are interested in being informed." And so for yourselves, dive into peer-reviewed journals, dive into current papers that are coming out that do include double-blind placebo-controlled studies, and do that in the area of health as well as your mental health and anything else. And I think you'll find the journeys exciting, and in any way we can help each other in our own mental health, talking to friends, being open about it. That's what Charles and I are about, just adding more voices to the space. So thank you once again for coming to Me, I Am Mental, the podcast. Don't forget to check out meimental.me for more information and links to our guest, Kamau Wanyoike. Wow, darn it. I almost said it perfectly, but Wanyoike. Wanyoike. Yes. And thank you very much, and thanks, crew, for hanging in there. That's it for now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.